we can go. Let's get the right thing up. There it is. All right, here we go. A little intro, and off we go in 3, 2, 1.
Love American Style. Young love, anxious parents, and the pill. The pill. A pool hustler, a beautiful lady, and the games they play. And our first story about a ring, an engagement, and a former marriage called Love and a Couple of Couples.
I have
Current Geek!
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Current Geek. This is Current Geek, and today we'd like to welcome you to our autopilot edition. A chance for us to watch the pilot episode of a TV show, geek out about it, talk about what it went on to be, all that sort of stuff. I'm Scott Johnson. He's Tom Merritt, and this week we are talking about Love American Style.
This is one that is very much of an era. There's a dividing line of age, whether you even know what this is or you're befuddled by the name altogether. And I'm not sure exactly what that age is, but it's funny. I've talked to people, and some people I say Love American Style, they're like, I have no idea what that is. Other people like Brian Brushwood, close enough to our age to be like, all right, all I remember about that is the hippie kind of theme song. This is why it's so fun to do this show, because it's going to be exposing a bunch of people to something that they probably didn't know exists, because it hasn't really run in syndication, even on those secondary channels that are on the digital tiers for a long time. But it was the ultimate pilot factory, because it was an anthology show. Each episode would have 3 separate stories unrelated to each other, and the network used it to try out series ideas.
Yeah, and so a lot of people are like, well, give me an example. And I would say, how about Happy Days, for example?
Yeah, have you heard of a little show called Happy Days?
Yeah, it was great. It was a happier time and a happier day, and that show spawned from this. Now, I will admit I hadn't heard of any of it before you suggested it. And part of the reason I wanted to do it,
and you're older than me, so that blows my theory away.
Well, only about 6 months or something, so it's not too crazy. But even then, like, I feel like whatever was on, I would have remembered or seen. I remember things like The Love Boat and Fantasy Island and Gilligan's Island and all the islands.
I did not watch this on television when it was in prime time. For the 71 and 72 seasons, it was part of an ABC Friday primetime lineup, along with the Brady Bunch, Partridge Family, Room 222, and The Odd Couple. It ran from 1969 to 1974, so I was kind of too young to really understand it. My parents probably thought it was a little old for me. But when it went into syndication, they actually, because it was 3 separate stories each time, they cut it down to a half hour.
Oh.
So I think sometimes it was only 2 stories, or they'd cut the stories up, and they ran it in syndication. So I would see it in the afternoons, kind of along with reruns of the Brady Bunch. And that's when the theme song got burned into my mind.
Yeah, this would have been, so that's interesting, 69 to 72. I was born in 69, so were
74,
you.
Yeah.
Wait, you were 69 or 70? Whatever you
69 to 74 is when it ran.
Oh, that's when it ran. So I think you got lucky. I think it was all about who ran the syndication. Because in my case, just as far as I know, it didn't exist. But I saw the Brady Bunch in the afternoons also, and I would catch reruns of,
Channel 11 in St. Louis ran Love American Style, along with Courtship of Eddie's Father, Brady Bunch, Munsters, stuff like that.
Yeah. Did you get the Bewitched or in that same
Bewitched,
block?
Gilligan's Island. Yeah.
Yeah, all that stuff. And I remember I was really into all of it, and I would have probably been into this, having seen it now, at least the pilot. I would have probably watched this and stayed there and listened. I may not have known at that young of an age just how saucy it kind of was.
That even surprised me rewatching this pilot, which I'll be honest, I don't remember any of these episodes. I really, like Brian, I remember the theme song, and that's about it. Yeah. I knew there were multiple stories. I had forgotten that they had the little comedic elements in between each story that had a consistent cast that sort of, were doing little funny little sketches. But yeah, I did not remember it being so saucy. Saucy is the word. In a primetime broadcast friendly manner, obviously, which I think that passes the test, right? As an 8 or 9-year-old watching this in the afternoon on syndication, all the adult jokes went right over my head.
Sure. And they're all, I should make this clear, they're all pretty minor. I would put it in there with like the jokes are a bit like you get on Laugh-In, for example.
Yeah.
Like, subversive, but not open, not like overtly subversive, but just sort of, I see what you did there, little hidden joke there. So,
well, it's the passes the 5-year-old test, right? Like, so the joke will be like, well, just go in the bedroom and stay there. Wait, don't go in the bedroom. Wink, 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 right? Yeah. And to a 5-year-old, be like, oh, it's just they don't want to go in the bedroom. There's nothing else to it. Whereas all of us are like, what do they mean by the bedroom?
Sure.
Yeah.
It's a little bit
it's full of double entendre.
Sure. It's a little bit of a precursor to things that you and I would remember as being very saucy, or at least, I don't know, it's been a while, but like Three's Company would take over in that way for me in the 80s when I was a kid. I remember seeing episodes of that and going, oh, this is funny. And my mom going, no, you're not going to watch Three's Company. That show's terrible. Everyone's having sex with everybody. And I remember my mom had really branded that thing as like off limits. This feels like the late 60s, early 70s is just starting to cut into prime time a little bit of double entendre, a little bit of just sneaking it in, And so that was kind of fun to see here. And of course, it was all the rage back then to talk about the pill in society. And there's an entire episode for it.
It's funny to think that was super controversial to the point they had to say, love and the pill, the pill.
Right.
Yeah, we're talking about it.
So did you, okay, well, I guess we can talk about them in the order they came because this is different. For a pilot, this was a little bit weird. It's an anthology series, and I guess always was. Did its full run?
So there's nothing really, unlike a lot of the stuff we watch, there's nothing that's really going to change significantly about the show because we're never going to see any of these characters again. The format stays pretty much the same. The theme song changes. They have a different, it's the same song, but they have a different performer at some point, but that's about it.
Yeah. It starts with this, I think the weakest of the 3 stories, the one about the ring. This is fine. Whatever. I just found it to be
love and a couple of couples.
Yeah, and it's just, I don't know. People don't behave like that.
Very 60s, that one, right? Because there's a little bit of wife swapping hint in the background sort of thing going on. And divorce is still rather controversial. So, it's very modern, even though it doesn't feel modern to us. It feels like a fairly mundane story, really. Back then it was like, oh, a divorced couple and his ex-wife comes, oh my gosh. And
the thing that with him or her coming back and kind of hanging out with them and just trying to manage that relationship, I just don't feel like that happens much. When people break up, they break the F up and the other one goes that way and you go your way and you're not crossing over for dinners and things like that.
Unless there's kids. If there's kids involved, a lot of times I know of couples, Jennifer Garner, for instance. I don't know her, but I actually know less famous couples who, they've divorced and they take care of the kid together and they share the kid duties and they're very friendly about it. Yeah. They're partners in it. They just don't want to be married anymore. Yeah. That's kind of the attitude they're going through here, but they don't have kids involved.
No, it's just a bunch of late 60s,
also,
30s.
I don't know about you, but I bet they get this past the censors. And if anybody doesn't know, every broadcast network had standards and practices people that were loosely called the censors who would decide what is okay to put on television. It was part of the self-regulation of broadcast TV. And to get it past the censors, I bet they had to make it a happy ending where the divorced couple get back together.
Oh, yeah. No,
to show that in the end, divorce really isn't the right answer because look at these two. They get back together.
Yeah, that was the part that I found the most unbelievable. So I guess that one just didn't land on me. But it did immediately feel like the sitcoms of the era. The way the laugh track would come in, the colors, the way the thing was filmed, the clothes, obviously. Like immediately I'm brought back to like, Brady Bunch, especially early Brady Bunch. And that era of sitcom just comes kind of flooding in. And you can see why this was a vehicle for other shows to find their feet. Like I haven't seen the Happy Days one, so I don't know how this all transpires. Maybe you know more about it than me, but I assume that it's kind of a micro version of what that show would become, and they spun it out and said, all right, let's make this all into big fleshed out characters and add new people.
It's mostly about Richie.
Yeah.
And it's got Potsy in it, and they're just talking about, what it's like to be kid in the 50s. It's called Love and the Television Set. And the plot of that one centers around who has a television set and whether they should get a television set because it's the 50s.
Wow. All right. So that being said, it's an interesting idea that you don't see today. Like, you have some anthology examples. Mostly they're dramas. American Horror Story is a good one. Fargo's a good one. There are examples today of anthology-style shows. Sometimes they have connectivity between them. Sometimes they don't. Those two examples have a little. But you don't really see this anymore, especially a comedy format. This would be very, very strange. It's almost like they said, all right, we want a little Monty Python in there, and we're going to get that with the interstitials. Little Benny Hill Monty Python with these little skits in between. And it's some beach, something happened at the beach, and it's a big joke, ha ha ha. And this later on happens with some other misunderstanding at the park. And there are these very short, very small, I felt like Americans trying to do Python, trying to do Benny Hill moments. And then these other were these big drawn out 3 stories. So in a weird way, it's like the flip of an SNL or something. It's like the sketches were long. Like
it's a format that I think only could exist at that crossroads of entertainment. The title, Love American Style, was sort of a play on an Italian comedy from 1961 called Divorce Italian Style, which received an Academy Award nomination. It was well loved and became sort of a name that you would play off of. You'd do such and such location style. In fact, there was a spoof of it in 1967 called Divorce American Style by Dick Van Dyke. And then a couple of years later, you get Love American Style on primetime TV. Again, sort of the whitewashed version for primetime was like, well, we can't talk about divorce in the title. We'll call it Love and celebrate something positive. But I think it was playing off sort of the short film, the artistic film that like things like Blow Up at the time that were experimenting with story, and variety shows, which were still huge back then. Donnie and Marie, Carol Burnett, Sonny and Cher, right? And so it's like, well, we'll have a bit of variety. We'll have a little sketch comedy like Monty Python. We'll have these edgy stories, and we'll be able to tell different stories all the time because we won't be locked into, you know, a week to week cast. I don't know if this is the kind of thing. I mean, I guess Black Mirror is sort of our modern version. It's just the whole every episode is a full story for a lot longer than 20 minutes.
Oh yeah, I wasn't thinking about that, but yeah, you got that. You got the upcoming reboot of the Outer Limits. What am I talking about? Twilight Zone. I knew I was getting close, but those are kind of making a bit of a resurgence. I'm actually all for anthology style stuff. I've just never really thought about it from a comedy perspective. And
well, and in short too, right? Like here's 3 short films, basically.
Right. Yeah. And it obviously, like you keep saying, it was a thing of its time. It probably worked better then. I'm not sure it would work now, but it made me curious if somebody wanted to try something, or I'd be into this in the era of streaming. We can do some experiments. I would watch a limited run of an 8-episode anthology comedy series. Like, that'd be all right. What was that?
Yeah, sound? And you don't have Stuart Margolin and Phyllis Davis doing Benny Hill style sketches in Black Mirror either.
So okay, I knew that guy's name. He was on Rockford Files, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So who is, I can't remember his character on there. I have to look it up real quick, but I didn't know he was a comedian. Like, I'm watching this. Okay, so if anybody out there in the chat,
he also was on Vegas later in his life as well.
Oh, I gotta find this Rockford Files, and he's not with us anymore, right? Like that guy.
And the younger kid is James Hampton. He was Private Dobbs on F Troop, so he was actually more famous than he is now. Whereas Stuart Margolin is more famous to us now because Rockford Files, I think, ended up being bigger and certainly more recent than F Troop.
There it is. Yep. And then he was in a bunch of movies, I remember, but I immediately saw that guy's face and went, oh, no, he's still alive. He's still around. Anyway, I saw that and went, oh, yeah, Rockford Files guy, what are you doing in this? And he just came off as kind of creepy and skeevy in those little sketches. They're the least favorite part of this for me, by the way. I just want to put that out there. The little in-betweeners, I did not like them.
No, didn't work for you, huh?
No, uncomfortable and weird, and long pauses for no reason. Like, weird facial expressions. Like, I felt like they were being experimental, and it didn't work for me. Just kind of.
They were being experimental. They absolutely were.
Maybe those got
in
better.
that same vein as Monty Python, which you just like better.
Do you think that stuff just got better over time? Like, you know,
I think you either like it or you don't.
Sure.
You either think it's like way out there, man.
Yeah.
Or you don't.
I can see that.
It's some of it is embarrassing because we don't tell jokes that way anymore. That's not okay. You know, there's a little bit of gender roles that they play off of that we don't find as funny as maybe they did back then. Some of it is probably referring to situations of the time that were hilarious, but because we don't really realize those situations anymore, the jokes are just lost on us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely not a generation that I necessarily associate with, but I can go for some good cheese. There was just something about those mid bits that just made me, I don't know, cringe a little bit. So this,
now, what did you think of Love and the Hustler?
So I felt like that of all of these, that felt like the one that was a setup for a spinoff. I'm not saying they meant to, but
well, all of them are potentially that.
Sure.
Right. So some of them are done intentionally, like Love in the Television Set was intentionally done to actually become. That's an interesting side point. It was actually supposed to be New Family in Town's pilot. They didn't pick up New Family in Town, so they repackaged it as Happy Days, and it did get picked up. But some of them were not intentional, but they all sort of could be.
Yeah.
And so you're basically saying to me is you liked that pilot. You wanted to see that turned into a show.
Well, it just felt like one that might. I'm not sure if I would have liked it or not, but you know, Flip Wilson would go on to do other stuff, so he certainly had his time on TV.
It's kind of the height of his career too. Like
Yeah.
he's big at this point.
Yeah, he's having a good time with his career, and there were other interesting characters in that bit, and it just felt like in some ways it would have also been kind of a big deal. It would have been like a mostly, almost entirely African-American cast at the time, which would have been really interesting. I'm trying to think anything else around that time. I guess that
I mean, you're leading into Good Times, What's Happening, are going to follow on from Love American Style.
Sure.
And it is, you know, it is a situation and an era where you can have an all black cast with maybe a few white actors, or you can have an all white cast with maybe a couple black actors. But you don't really just mix up. It's either a black show or a white show still. And this is that stuck out to me as like, okay, this is, you know, for its time, it's edgy because they have a black story.
Sure.
But it also is very much like, and this is the black people story versus this is just a story that happens to have black people in it.
We wouldn't get there for a while. In fact, I felt like you had to have the Jeffersons to kind of blow that all up.
Yeah, the Jeffersons for sure is a good example of the earliest of that. They
had to kind of come in and explode it, so it was still about the not conflicts, but the differences, and it focused on the white guy doesn't understand, the black guy doesn't understand. Like that was the precept of most Jefferson's episodes, but it felt important in a way because it was like breaking down.
Well, and you had
something.
A mixed race couple of the Jeffersons. That's sort of unheard of.
Which at the time, was like hugely a big deal. But I liked it. It's, you know, you got to be reminded. It's easy to be reminded the minute you watch it, but it's very much set in that kind of jive talking stereotype where everyone's got really big, colorful bell bottoms and ridiculous collars.
It's right on the edge of offensive sometimes, for sure.
It is. I'm sure at the time it was fine, but I'm watching this going, oh, this is a cartoon of itself. But I liked that one. Like I thought the characters were funny.
That one was written by Robert L. Goodwin.
All right. How do we know him? Do we know him?
Wait a minute. Who wrote this? You can look up Robert Goodwin and try to find out as much about him as you can.
Sure. I'm sure he's got miles of credits for other things, but not to diminish his career. I'm sure it was great. But the point is, like, it took it in a different place. The other two are very domestic, you know? First one's like,
right,
here we are with the deal with the couples. And then later it was like, oh, parental kids just these days and parents just don't understand, and like all of that were very domestic. This was like, I don't know, just kind of out there. It was all about pool hustling, and I liked that Flip Wilson ends up getting completely hosed by a woman who he clearly doesn't respect, especially in the 70s. You know, again, all these tropes are popping up, and they are subverting those a little bit. So I don't know why that one stuck out for me, but it did. The third one, the parents were just too clueless for my taste. I couldn't deal with those.
Love and the Pill. I think that's the one that suffers the most of being of its time, because the parents are caricatures of parental reactions to the pill. And it was very clear that they were trying to make the point of it's the parents that are overreacting to this. The kids are responsible. The kids aren't, if you trust your kids, they'll do the right thing. Like, it was almost like a public service announcement.
It did feel like that. And I just didn't buy them as I don't know, they were too wacky. And of course, he's in there doing his crossword puzzle and can't pull his mind away from it. And she's trying to have a real conversation with him. And he's like, what's a 5-letter word for trash? And I don't remember what she says. And he just says, shoot, I already came up with that word. And it was really her just trying to actually have a conversation. And I just felt like, yeah, okay, I get it. Parents don't understand. Kids are wild and crazy. Hello, every generation ever. Like, that's just where this one's at. And it was, again, it was fine. It did the job, but I feel like if I was watching that with any kind of critical eye, I would have gone, maybe just do 2 of these. Or maybe, like, I don't know how other episodes went. Maybe these got amazing after a while, but I wonder if they were always mixed like this, where you really had kind of a bummer one, and then 1 or 2 of them were great or okay or whatever. I don't know. Tom, in all his wisdom, where is it? He found these, because it's impossible to stream it anywhere or find it. And I don't know where I put my discs. But anyway, Tom sends me a copy of this.
I'll show you I got mine right here.
Yeah, hold yours up. There it is. Or wait, let me get you on camera. Okay. So that is Love American
Style, the digital versatile disc.
Yeah, digital versatile disc. You may be familiar with it. In fact, a lot of you heard that and went, wait, I thought it was digital video disc. And you'd be wrong. It's versatile. But look at that. Those are DVDs. And that's the entirety of season 1 or the entire series? I don't know.
No. I think it's just season 1.
Okay. So the question
is 1969.
Can I?
It might not even be all of season 1.
Who can convince me?
Yeah, no, this is only half of season 1, because back then, remember, seasons were 24, 26 episodes. This is just the first half of season 1.
So now that these came here, are you gonna watch the whole thing, or what are you gonna do?
No.
It's so much a thing of its time. You're saying we
Although and the reason I say that is because, like, I actually had to go grab my PlayStation, move it into the bedroom so I could watch these things, because I didn't want to bother Eileen. Like, watching a DVD is a chore these days. I know. I just moved into a new place, and this is the second DVD I've watched since I moved here, and the other one was Star Wars that we watched for the CurrentGeek Film Festival. So
right.
It's sort of like, I don't know if I want to go into the bedroom just to watch these, but because that's where the PlayStation is now.
Funny you brought that up. This thing in my hand right here, this Asus thin little CD drive. I bought this just for this occasion. Or these kinds of occasions, because I no longer have a DVD player in the house, other than, the PlayStation will play DVDs, stuff like that. But I'm with you. It's like, I just want to plop down on my tablet, or, I have
I think these are owned by CBS. I'm not sure why they're not on CBS All Access.
Maybe they will.
Or if they are, I didn't find them. Because I would definitely bum around looking for great, like Harrison Ford was in one of these episodes later on. Just looking at this first half of season 1, there's Bob Crane, who was Hogan in Hogan's Heroes. There's who did I see here just now? Phyllis Diller is in one of these.
Whoa.
Like, stars of the day made an appearance. Bill Bixby is in one of these.
Oh,
of course,
nice.
David Banner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did. We've done actually the Hulk. Didn't we do the Hulk pilot? I don't remember if we did. Maybe we didn't.
Yeah, I think we did. Back in the old Idol Pilot standalone days. We did.
Been a while. Yeah. She just died.
Rich Little is in one of these.
Oh, the voice guy. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like. See, that's what's so funny. It's such an unknown thing to me. Yet it was this launching pad for some careers. It was a place where even actors, who were doing other things could go and do their thing, which predates what the Love Boat would become, which is this total cavalcade of stars. Like, in some ways, I feel like it just doesn't get the credit it deserves. While half my brain doesn't I didn't love the actual content of the pilot, I can appreciate it for it being a springboard. And there's no doubt. Happy Days is one of the biggest shows in the history of any time.
And you can find that one clipped out. It's probably not legal for the people to have posted it who did, but I found it on YouTube. That's how I was able to look at it. And That's worth a look. There's also, that was on Love American Style, February 25th, 1972. By the way, it's now called Love and the Happy Days. If you buy the DVD, they changed the name for syndication because they wanted to have that Happy Days association. It was originally called Love in the Television Set, and it aired February 25th, 1972. February 11th, 1972 is the only other one of these that got picked up. That was Love and the Old-Fashioned Father. That ended up becoming the pilot for the animated series Wait Till Your Father Gets Home by Hanna-Barbera. A lot of people think, oh, The Simpsons started the era of primetime animation, but Wait Till Your Father Gets Home ran in the mid-'70s in primetime as well.
Wow. I found, by the way, on YouTube the Harrison Ford episode, and I'm trying to just get a shot of his face here so the chat can see.
Yeah.
He's not showing up right away.
It's American Graffiti era Harrison Ford, not Han Solo.
Oh, there he is, dude. He is very pre-Han Solo. He looks like he's about, well, he would have been 20-something here.
Yeah, he's real young.
So this is him just getting started after his carpentry career in his late teens and 20s.
Actually, I think this is kind of while he's doing his carpentry career. He's picking up as many gigs as he could.
Wow, that's crazy. All right. I may have to go. Let's actually hear him real quick. I want to see what he says. All right, here we go.
I'm doing that. You see, they're not going to live in one of those wild communes.
How would you know? You're just making polite conversation with him.
What do you expect me to do? Knock him down, sit on his chest? I don't think I could do it. He's bigger than I am.
You don't even...
Well, that's all he's going to say. But you get the idea. That is the tenor. That's the tenor and the tone of the show. And that if that doesn't jump out as familiar to anybody who grew up as a little kid in the 70s or even a teenager in the 80s with reruns, then I can't help you. Because that stuff just immediately, as soon as I hear that kind of laugh track, that kind of joke delivery, it's just school Thursday afternoon after school repeats on some weird channel all day. Like that's it. That's the stuff. And I feel like I've tried to do this with my kids. Like my kids, one of their favorite shows ever is the Dick Van Dyke Show. I don't know why. They just discovered it on Netflix and they loved it. So it's been my job to go, well, what else would they like that I was only seeing in weird reruns on channels that, was well out of my range of age. And, so I introduced them to some old I Love Lucy, and they started watching the Andy Griffith Show, and they really like this old stuff. So I'm just going to make this recommendation. You hear us talk about some newer things, some older things on the show. Highly recommend you look at something like this. If it's not this, something else from that era, and just soak in it a little bit and appreciate a different era's approach to comedy and to drama and to music and to cues. And just it's a different time, and I think it's good for you to have it. So if you're like a millennial or whatever the new ones are called, what's Nick's group? Whatever they are.
Generation Z, I don't know.
Something like that. Just go.
Oh, wait, I heard it called iGen.
Oh, I haven't heard that. What?
I don't know if that's caught on yet, but I heard that that one's being tried out.
What, like iPhone kind of thing, or internet generation or something?
Yeah, like iPhone, but also self-centered. I guess I don't know.
Can confirm.
By the way, every new generation is assumed to be more self-centered than any generation that's ever been, so don't take it personally.
Do you think it's accumulative, though? Let's talk about this just for a second. Do you think? Because I was thinking about this the other day. Do you think
the generation gap is brought up several times in Love and the Pill? So I think it's an appropriate connection.
Good point. So if let's say the generation that fought in World War II came home in their 20s and then had kids, and they saw their kids as being self-centered and disrespectful to their elders and all that, and then the next generation saw that, and then my kids' generation saw that, and now whatever new ones are having that. Is it stacking, or is it just the perception has always been the same and it's about the same?
My theory on this is that the differences between people in different eras at a certain age are largely exaggerated. That you can go to any year. If you could time travel, go to any year, you will find that generally speaking, the attitudes of the 40-year-olds to the 20-year-olds is about the same. Well, the kids these days don't understand, and they don't want to work hard. And we could talk forever about why that is, but part of it just has to do with when you're young, you have lots of different kinds of people, some who want to work hard and some who don't. And one thing that is universal when you're young is you don't know your limits. And so people tend to push themselves forward. Now, combine that with the fact that we are very bad at making generalizations from small sample sets. So if you have 2 people in their 20s out of 30 in your workplace who are lazy and loud about it, and you're in your 40s and you were one of the 20-year-olds who worked really hard, you're going to say kids these days don't want to work because you are generalizing from a small sample set and ignoring all those other kids that disprove what you're saying. Yeah. So I just think that's what it happens. It's like, there are certain universals about how people at a certain age work and how they act. And those change a little bit based on the society and the conditions of the world. But there's certain universals underpinning that make it very similar. So you always hear some of the same things. You can go back into the 1800s and in very different words, read kids these days don't want to work hard. They're lazy and they don't understand. It's just throughout time. It's always been that way.
Yeah. I don't know why we have such a hard time. Well, whatever. This is a broader conversation, but why we're so bad at recognizing that and knowing it for what it is or accepting it for what it is. I feel like I'm pretty good at that, but I don't know why. I obviously, I'm sure I don't exactly, but I feel like I do. Like I can see it. I go, oh man, the stuff my parents worried about, now I'm worried about. The things I thought they were lame about, I'm being lame. Like I can see it happen. So,
well, and there's other things that just happen to the human body as it gets older that it changes your energy level and what you can tolerate and your mood and and so suddenly you're like, man, I'm a cranky old man. It's like, yeah, because you have a cranky old metabolism. That's why.
Yeah, and isn't there? I always heard, I don't know if this is an old wives' tale, but I always heard that we're no longer the same cells we were when we were kids anyway. Like we're a whole different people multiple times over. So.
For the most part, that's true.
Yeah. I mean, what's the same? Let's think about that. Nothing. My hair follicles are all different. I don't know.
I think there may be some neurons that last pretty long. I don't know.
Well, look, the bottom line is love American style. See it.
We are all made of stars.
We all are made of stars. I actually would recommend watching this, and I'm going to actually watch the rest of the DVD because I really appreciated the fact that Tom found this and sent it. And that was going to be really our only way to watch it. So I'm gonna sally forth and push through it and see what else.
Sally Forth was a popular comic of the time that you read in the newspaper.
It was. It might actually still be out there in syndication. I'm not actually sure about that. But at any rate, did you have a favorite of the 3? Did you have one that jumped out and you went, oh yeah, the ring or the pill? Like, what'd you like?
I think I liked the Love and the Hustle too, just because Love and the Hustler. I mean, just because it was a very different story, right? You got a pool hall going on, and even though I could see what was going to happen miles away, I actually enjoyed that because they were acknowledging like, hey, these gender stereotypes maybe need questioning, which is not necessarily typical of the time, although it was the 60s and there was a feminist revolution going on. Primetime TV didn't necessarily deal with that as much, so it was a cool story. It was still primetime television from 1969, but it was a cool story. Love and the Pill I thought was over the top, is my least favorite. I liked Love and the Hustler, or I'm sorry, Love and the Couple of Couples better than you did, if for no other reason than that New York apartment style. Where the guy trying to cook a roast. It felt very Mad Men to me in some way.
Oh yeah, I kind of get that vibe as well now that you say that. And of course that is that era, I suppose, late 60s. Well, maybe halfway through that show's era. But anyway, it's worth seeing. You should check it out and see what you think. That's our autopilot. Next month,
Love American Style.
Next month we're doing another one, but I'm not going to tell them what it is until I read this email. Check this out. John Janes wrote in. This is good that he wrote in because this is kind of about these special episodes we do. It says episode Current Geek 199 is the subject of his message. He says, hey, Scott, I just wanted to start out by saying I listen to every podcast, whether it be TMS, The Instance, or even There Will Be Dungeons. But this is the first time I've ever felt the need to write in. This episode of Current Geek hit me in all of the feels. I'm 22 years old, and not only did I grow up with Star Wars, but my dad helped me grow up with Star Wars. I remember when I was just a little kid and he handed me my Darth Vader collector's case, the same one our friend Tom Merritt has. This was the start of it all for me. I've loved the Star Wars universe and everything it has to offer. This has been by far my favorite podcast you have ever done, in my opinion, and I just wanted to say, keep it up, guys. So isn't that cool? It's so nice. That was our.
May the force be with you, John.
Yeah. I mean, I think Empire is probably on that 200 movie list. We'll get around to Star Wars.
I can look that up real quick. It's definitely coming. We've got E.T. 2 months out.
Yeah.
So we're getting into more modern movies down here. But yeah, where is Empire Strikes Back? I thought I looked it up last time. I just don't remember off the top of my head.
Seems like it should be. If it's not in there, that feels like a crime. But we'll check because I still think it stands as the best one. But yeah, look. As Tom and I can both tell you, we got Star Wars in our blood. So that's the stuff that stays. Even though all your cells have recycled many times, our Star Wars love stays right where it was when I was 7 or 8 years old, just right there. And it sounds like he was, he's the same. So we're happy to be the guys who brought you that rad episode. And I agree, it was a good one. I really enjoyed doing that one. And look forward to more.
I had fun watching it because we were able to watch the restored, the unspecial edition, the pre-special edition, and that really just brought me back. Empire Strikes Back's number 67 on our list, and next month we'll be doing One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which is number 17.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, a movie I've always meant to see and never did. So this one feels like an embarrassment. There's no reason I shouldn't have seen this. Just should have been a movie I saw. If I was going to see
it's Jack Nicholson, our first Jack Nicholson.
That's true. I mean, if I've seen movies like The Shining or any other big 70s movies, you'd think this would be on my list, but for some reason I never did. So.
1975. Yeah, the next 5 movies, I'll just throw them out there. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. After that, E.T., another Spielberg movie.
Yep.
Then It Happened One Night. We're going back to 1934.
Oh, my gosh.
The Maltese Falcon, which I'm looking forward to. Love that movie.
Yeah.
And then 12 Angry Men, which I have not seen and is one of those you hear referred to all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to all of those. Our next month's Autopilot episode, however, will be Faulty Towers.
Hey!
My favorite comedy television series of all time. And that says a lot because I really like Seinfeld. I really like the classics and the greats. I love good comedy on TV. But I love Faulty Towers with a fiery passion. There was never enough of it. What we do have is precious, and we should always be grateful for it. And we'll finally get to sit down and talk about that amazing show and why it was amazing. We may even dig in a little bit to the American sort of version of it that did not do so well. I've never seen it. I think I want to see that pilot as well, just so we can talk about it. We'll see if we can somehow find that. But that's next month's Autopilot, Faulty Towers. Now, because of the screwed up schedule, that being me and bad internet and Tom on a vacation, we're jumping right to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest next week. So that's next Tuesday. That'll get us back on track. And then we'll have a normal sort of news conversation sort of episode after that, and then Faulty Towers after that. So we'll get back on track.
I like to think of our news conversation episodes as variety shows.
Yeah, like that.
You know, we have movies, we have single TV shows, and then we have our variety show. We should see if we can get Chevy Chase to join us.
I like it. Do you think we could do a weird interstitials and have this kind of music?
Pretty great, actually. We should totally do that.
I think we should too. I think it'd be all right. Anyway, if you'd like to email us just like our good buddy John did, you can do that and use the email currentgeek@gmail.com. Of course, our website is currentgeek.com. And a reminder, if you'd like to support this show and help it grow and make us even more awesome than we already are, and we're not that awesome. Without you, we're nothing. So head on over to patreon.com/currentgeek and show your love there. Tom, is there anything else you've got this week that you'd like to mention before we go?
Silver Jeeps.
Whoa. Okay, silver Jeeps
are all over Hawaii.
Why? What's the deal?
We have discovered the why, and we will reveal it on this week's It's a Thing with myself and Molly Wood.
Oh, fantastic. That airs on Fridays, records on Fridays. When's it come out?
Yeah, if you're a patron and you hook up Discord, you can listen in as we record it on Fridays. This Friday we'll be recording at 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern, 4 Mountain. And then if you're on the public feed, the free public feed, or if you're a patron, usually Rich Truffalino, our producer, gets it out by Saturday morning. So you check your feed Saturday, you should have it then.
That's fantastic. All right, so check that out. Check out all the good stuff happening at TomMerritt.com as well as FrogPants.com. You find other shows like this one. It's going to do it for us, for me, for Tom, for all of you. We'll see you next time. Oh, I forgot to check on a Legal Geek. I think there is one, though.